You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Barbell Logic, Beast Over Burden. I'm Nikki Sims, joined by my bestie, Andrew Jackson. Hi, Andrew.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Loving life.
Yes. We spoke last week about body image, eating in ways that will make you lose weight, gain weight, get to a state where you're uncomfortable, get to a state where you are comfortable. And we thought it'd be neat this week to talk more specifically about what we eat and how much we eat of protein. We're definitely going to talk about protein to drive our training and how we get to that without just being protein shake consumers all the time.
That's been the biggest evolution, I would say, in my nutrition over the years is first off, shooting for the moon to get quote unquote enough protein. And that kind of led into the Milky Boy phase that we talked about last time. And then getting into if it fits your macros and weighing and measuring everything and trying to dial in exactly the right amount of protein, but doing so basically at all costs. And then over the last few years, having a little bit more of a balanced approach and sort of practical way of getting protein consistently without having to drink 6 scoops of protein powder every day, which I do not recommend, but have done.
I believe you. And we see in our nutrition clients certain patterns like that because we get to see photos of everything they're eating and drinking, which means sometimes we see 3-4 protein shakes a day and no vegetables, or we see hardly any protein, lots of processed and refined foods. Like a big direction that we try and push our clients to is that phrase, eat the rainbow. We're trying to get real foods, single ingredient with lots of vitamins in them. And we try to get their protein coming from, animal protein sources. And whey is apparently a good protein source. But I don't know. When you have a protein shake, do you feel satisfied where you're like, I just have all my needs met?
No. Protein powder I still have and occasionally will use as a supplement if I'm in a situation where I don't have the ability to get access to whole foods for whatever reason, traveling or, schedule just went to and had to take a last resort, but it's never satisfying and I usually don't feel satiated for very long. And it almost doesn't feel like I ate anything.
Right.
Liquid calories in general, I would say I end up just not feeling like I even ate.
Totally.
And I'm looking for something more. I kind of have that desire to continue eating or some unmet need that usually leads me to eating more calories from somewhere else.
Yeah. So how much protein do you try and get a day?
Well, that's actually been one of the biggest changes that I think has allowed me to take pressure off of feeling like I need to eat an insane amount of protein. For the longest time, I was striving for 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, which if you do the math, especially like I was saying last episode when I was weighing anywhere from 250 to 280, that is an insane amount of protein. Trying to get 260, 270 grams of protein was,
oh my Lord,
what led to a lot of protein shakes.
Yeah.
Because that's just really hard to do.
So much chewing.
Yeah, with whole food, that's just, unless you're eating a ton of chicken breast all day long, which is popular in the bodybuilding world. In fact, I've seen blended chicken breast recipes where they'll actually make chicken breast shakes.
Oh, God, it's terrible.
But from there, based on some things that I had read, particularly, I think it was Alan Aragon was who had kind of clarified that recommendation down to 1 gram per pound of lean body mass, which took some pressure off. because I was, especially at 260, 280, quite a bit of adipose tissue that did not obviously need protein to be able to sustain. So that kind of dropped it down into the 220 range. And then when I started working with Jillian, and some of the research that I've seen more recently is closer to like zero 0.8 to 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. So right now I'm floating somewhere around, 109 kilos, 110 kilos. And so I'm trying to get somewhere in more like 160 to 180 grams of protein. I don't think I did the math quite right there. I think it's actually 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound of body mass. So when you switch it to kilos, it almost doubles.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I'm pretty comfortably somewhere between 160 to maybe on the high end, 180 grams of protein, and feels great. Like I don't really feel like I'm depleted. I can definitely tell when I'm not getting enough protein. The bar just feels heavier. I don't feel like I'm recovering. That's really the biggest indicator. But that, I would say, is number one, before you even start trying to figure out how to get more protein in your day, get a realistic target for how much protein you actually need. How about you? What are you aiming for?
I'm aiming for 145 now. I wasn't even paying attention to protein for a while, I'll be honest. And when I did start paying attention to protein and I started making sure I was getting at least 100, totally started to feel better. And so I agree, really recover better. Like for me, it was, I remember you and I were walking to the gym and I was like, how do you know you're not getting enough protein? Even though I think I knew the answer. You're like, well, you're going to be sore all the time, kind of achy, just feeling kind of like weak sauce at the gym. And I was like, and I knew the answer. I was like, yes, that's me. Hello.
Yeah.
So when I upped that, I started to feel a lot better.
Yeah, I would say most people initially, when they start paying attention to nutrition, probably need more protein. But as that 1 gram per pound of body weight became popular, I noticed especially a lot of bigger guys actually need to cut back on the protein diet. Somewhere between 2 to 3 protein shakes a day.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it would be better served getting vegetables.
Yeah. If you're eating more than 2 scoops of protein powder every single day, I would say you might need to reevaluate your situation.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So when you decided to add more, what are some of the strategies that you implemented to increase your protein?
Well, I can take you through my day because I pretty much eat the same thing every day.
That's convenient. That's a strategy.
Yes, it is. It works really well. I don't have to stress about it. I've made it super delicious. So for breakfast, I have a piece of bacon. I have 100 grams of egg whites and I have 2 eggs. And then I supplement that with red peppers and onions and green chili. And I have strawberries and sometimes some greens. So that's my first feeding of eating the rainbow. And I think that's 30 something.
Turkey breast in there as well, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I have deli turkey. Thank you. Yeah. So I scramble that with my eggs. So yeah, nice protein start to the morning. I think it's 35 grams of protein. Then my next is an RX bar. I eat those daily. They have 12 grams of protein in them. They're just real food. So I like those. And then I have Greek yogurt. I have 200 grams of Greek yogurt with some blueberries, PB2, and cinnamon. Then I have oatmeal with PB2 and cinnamon and raisins. Oatmeal has some protein in it, so that counts. And so does the PB2 without being really fatty. And then for dinner, if my chef is in town, Andrew's my chef, then we have a really good meal of stir fry with veggies and meat in it, or makes really good chicken with vegetables, rice, turkey burgers, some sort of, delicious dinner that has meat, vegetables, and sometimes starch. And then I end the day with a serving of ice cream. And sometimes I'll have a protein shake, if we're going to be eating out where food choices aren't as optimal, then getting your protein shake in allows me to have the protein covered, and then I can have more wiggle room for carbs and fat. But that's how I get to 145 grams, and it's pretty easy to get there. It's all real food paired with vegetables. Yeah, I like it. It seems to work really well.
I would reiterate that as strategy number 1 would be to structure your meals ideally, if you can control your schedule enough to either prepare to have a structure throughout the day, or at least have some consistent meals. If you can get, 2 out of 3 or 2 out of 3 plus a snack to be almost identical
Yeah.
and protein centric. So I think that along with having that structure throughout the day, when you're looking at your plate, for me, it's to start with identifying what the protein is going to be and then sort of build the meal around the protein based on your energy needs.
Yeah, I love that guide.
I think those are the things that make the biggest difference for me. And then to your point, I also like to front load the protein so that I have a little bit more flexibility for dinner, which is where the meals tend to vary based on, wherever I'm at. But if I can front load the protein for breakfast, lunch, and my snack, which tend to be more consistent, then I have less pressure to need protein if I'm going out to a restaurant or, eating in a situation where maybe it's just not as available.
And you've gotten into cooking more and more lately. And something that I've picked up on is certain meals feel like I just had a meal. We were talking about how a protein shake, even if it has fat, carbs, and protein, it doesn't feel satisfying. And there are other meals we can have that also don't feel satisfying. And I think, and this is just a thought, that it has to do with these important components that you were reading about of having salt, fat, and an acid. And when you have those things, you feel like you can be full without being stuffed. You feel satisfied. I don't know if you've noticed anything like that.
Yeah, I would also add into that fiber.
Oh, yeah.
Or some sort of fibrous kind of food. So
The texture.
yeah, there's certainly when preparing the protein source, having some combination of salt, fat, heat, and acid. I would even add, the heat helps make it feel a little bit more like a meal, although it doesn't have to be hot. But having those components tends to make the meal taste really good. And then particularly the acid component, I notice helps sort of like level out the meal. Like for a long time, I wondered, like, why do I always get a pickle with my sandwich?
Yeah, what are types of acid? What are examples?
Could be citrus. So, like when you get a wedge of lime with your tacos, that's because the acid helps mellow out the rest of the meal. It helps with your digestion. A counter example that I heard reading the book, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, is that Thanksgiving dinner, a big reason why Thanksgiving dinner is so heavy and just you feel so like weighted down beyond just the fact that you eat a lot typically, is that there's almost no acid except for the cranberry sauce.
Amazing. Yeah.
So that's why the cranberry sauce is so popular. You want to put it on everything because it helps sort of mellow out your digestion. So citrus.
Tasty bite, like pickled things.
Yeah. Pickled things. Vinegar adds an acid. Fermented foods tend to have some sort of like an acidic component to it. That's why things like sauerkraut are so good, or kimchi on different meals. Those just kind of help balance out the meal and help with digestion. But in terms of protein, typically protein is going to be also a big source of where your fat is coming from. So if you can add in the acid to your portion of protein, it, I think, helps with digestion and kind of feeling like you can eat a meal without having a big protein bomb in your stomach. So I guess,
Totally.
Getting back to recommendations or strategies, sometimes what I'll see is people will be like, well, I'm just going to eat this big old steak and that'll get me my 80 grams of protein. But I would recommend breaking up your protein throughout the day, eating it with that well-rounded plate with some sort of fibrous vegetable, carbohydrate, some salt, fat, heat, and acid, and allow your body a chance to actually be able to enjoy and digest that food effectively. I think you're going to be able to be more sustainable in how you get your protein.
Totally. You really enjoy your meals so much more.
Yeah.
It makes food, especially when you start maybe restricting a little bit and you're looking for just eating whole foods, you have to remember how to get flavor onto your plate, like with herbs and spices. And we've used the word heat, but you pointed out before, like it could be lack of heat.
Sure.
Like the other night we had grilled chicken breast, and on the side of it we had this cold, delicious salad with beets and watermelon and cilantro. And it was pickled beets. So we had a lot of really...
Right. So there comes the acid.
Yeah, we had our acid. It was crisp and cold, which paired really nicely with chicken right off the grill. And so giving yourself a crunch as well in some, hopefully not your meat, but something on your plate, that variation in texture
Yeah.
Usually something fibrous makes such a huge difference where, it's not like this grind to sit down and suffer your way through an 8-ounce steak or something. You get to enjoy the course of a meal.
Yeah. And I would consider it a relative luxury that I have time and have practiced, particularly during the pandemic is when I started cooking a lot more. And that's when I was working with Jillian a lot, and she was kind of nudging me towards whole foods. But I would add as a strategy, if you're listening and thinking there's no way I have time to cook, then going back to the investment episode, I think and I recommend often to my busy clients who are, working a lot or have a lot going on in their life, that's a real good opportunity to invest in a meal prep service.
Totally.
Or at a minimum, a grocery shopping service. It's just like one of those things that, in fact, that came up in our Slack conversation with the coaches. What would you consider an investment that you can't live without? And multiple people said that the grocery delivery service was a game changer for them during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Just to have, which I guess both in common have the strategy of making sure that you have good sources of protein in your house, in the refrigerator, almost all the time. I think that's one of the challenges that I think happens is that protein can feel like it's a lot of work to prepare for some people. So I like your recommendation, and I do the same with yogurt, having that around. As much as I talked about overdoing the milk, I think having milk around is a good option.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Having a meal prep service where you've got the whole meal ready to go. Or if you're into grilling, smoking, or, cooking, baking, having a big pre-made, pre-cooked source of protein like chicken, or maybe it's steak, beef.
Smoked brisket.
Brisket. Have that ready to go in the fridge, separate from the rest of the meal.
Yes.
That's one of the other strategies I like to have, have the protein ready to go that I can then mix in with the fresh ingredients to build a meal on the fly. Or could even just be lunch meat, like you said, deli meat, having that ready to go that you can mix together with some kind of carbohydrate, some sort of vegetable. I find that to be really, really important. If you don't have protein sources that are ready to go, it can feel like a big obstacle to getting that meal started.
Totally. When I cook for myself, I like to cook once every 2 or 3 nights. So I can have leftovers the next 2 nights. And I really am so grossed out by chicken. So one of my favorite ways to deal with chicken is to take it right out of the pack and into my Instant Pot and slow cook it with broth or salsa or green chili, because then it's just magic shredded chicken. And then that works well for putting it in soups or putting it on a salad or making a chicken salad out of it or making tacos. You're so right. Once I have that big, protein source available, then the rest just kind of can fall into place.
Yeah. The borderline college student version of that I've been falling back to recently is to either bake or grill, 6 pounds of chicken, whatever. You can buy those mega packs of chicken, have that sitting in the fridge, and then get a can of soup, throw it in the stove, heat it up, and then chop up that pre-made chicken and add that.
It's the best.
Sprinkle on a little cilantro or something.
Put in some yogurt.
Give it a little bit of green, add some yogurt to give it a little bit of texture. And there you go. That is a 5-minute meal.
It's the best.
That takes a little bit of prep work to have the protein ready to go, but take an hour on Sunday to make several pounds of chicken, and you can add that to a lot of different things to have a quick and easy protein source.
Same thing with ground meat, ground beef, ground turkey. Ground chicken's pretty rough, but yeah, if you can get some good spiced ground meat, then you can throw that into a lot of different stuff too. Yeah, that's clutch.
My other emergency source that I think I've relied on during, I would say this is like the zombie apocalypse backup plan, is the canned tuna. You've got people that are going to be concerned about mercury or what have you, but the canned meat is another option that you can throw out there.
It's very useful.
It travels well. There's also canned chicken, I think I've seen.
Mm-hmm. It's the tuna of the land.
I don't know why that grosses me out for some reason, but
I love it.
Canned tuna I'll eat all day, but canned chicken.
Really?
There was a phase when I was in the Navy where I don't know why I thought this was a great but I would come home, get a big double can of tuna and just squirt mustard straight into the can, eat that. And
Delicacy.
that was a good life.
Fine dining.
Wouldn't recommend that, but
No. Emergency situations only.
yeah,
But you getting your acid from your mustard.
there you go. That's why it was probably good.
At least it tastes like it. Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, this is making me hungry. I'm excited for lunch and dinner, even though it's the same things I eat every day. Can't wait. And thanks for taking me on your protein journey.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Love it. Well, hope you all have a tasty lunch and dinner. Throw some pickled onions on there. Get some sauerkraut on everything is delicious. Try some red chili if you can find it. That is a way to just make your life infinitely better. And try building yourself a really colorful plate. And that really makes you feel good. Anyway, thanks for joining us. See you next week here on Beast Over Burden, Barbell Logic. I'm Nikki. This is Andrew. See you next time.
Bye-bye.